Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. In this one, we're taking a look at Benji, the Piercing Wind, inside of the Blitz format. This will be a deck you can play in Blitz, but mainly because Skirmish season is coming up. Actually, for real this time, unlike last time where I thought it was last month and it wasn't. I was a month off. I was originally going to do a Zen deck list, but I feel like Zen deck lists for Blitz are pretty cut and dry. Only a few other cards swapped, but Benji gets to play a lot of cards you don't see normally in the CC format, which is why I inevitably chose to show Benji. So with that, let's get started. Benji, the Piercing Wind, is a young ninja hero, reprinted in Outsiders, but originally from Crucible of War. They have 4 intellect and only 17 starting health, but that's because of how much true damage that Benji just gets. I guess it's not technically true damage, but it's very hard to block him. Your attack action cards with 2 or less base power can't be defended by cards from hand, and the first time an attack action card you control hits each turn, your next attack gains +1 power. Notably, that's usable on the daggers, but also your daggers can't be... The daggers aren't able to be unblockable because they're not attack actions. But the idea behind Benji is really just we're going to play a lot of attacks with 2 or less base power, or 2 or less current power, not base power, sorry. 2 or less current power to just try and hit our opponent with things they can't block. They can use equipment, they can block with cards from their arsenal, they can use instants, they cannot use block cards, they cannot play D-reacts from hand, they cannot defend with cards from hand. Most Blitz decks don't have that. Really, it's just armor. Some of them play D-reacts, but are they going to be able to get one in their arsenal fast enough? Benji ends games extremely fast, which is why Benji only has 17 HP, but that's okay. Looking at the equipment, 2 Harmonized Kirachi for the main board. We do have 2 needles in the sideboard. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but we'll just skip the weapon for now, I guess. Mask of Momentum is your only option because Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is banned because of Benji. So, you play Mask of Momentum. This one on 3rd hit in a row. Draw a card. Very easy to do on Benji if you can make your opponent not block with their equipment, which they're generally not going to do because Benji has some incredibly strong hit effects in his arsenal. Mask of Momentum will generally get you a card at least at one point in the game. And then we have the Tigers package in your equipment: Blood Scent, Tearing Shuko, and Pouncing Paws. There's a very good reason for all of these. First, with Blood Scent. This deck only ever pays for 1 actual card, and that is Mischievous Meeps. Other than that, your 1 resource will be spent to swing a Zephyr Needle or a Harmonized Kirachi, and you're probably not using Blood Scent to swing a Kirachi. So you only ever need 1 resource, and this is the best one to do it because it's battle worn, so you get to block for 1 and get the effect off. Tearing Shuko gives your next Tiger +2, as well as has 1 block battle worn. This one's important because it gives you the most possible damage without forcing you to get a pump. The problem with Tiger Stripe Shuko, which is in the deck, we will talk about why, is that you have to trigger it. So if your hand ends up being 2 attacks that have 2 power, you'll end up either having to throw one of them for 3 if you use your Benji effect on a Kirachi, or just throw one for 4, which sometimes isn't bad. Having your opponent block you isn't the worst thing. You don't get your damage through, but you are making opponents spend cards, so as long as it's not on like turn 1 or turn 0 where your opponent's going to refill their hand anyway, it's still getting cards out of their hand. It's less offense coming back at you, which is still pretty good. But this is controllable. It gives a Tiger that possibly could come in for 0 to power, which is perfect for Benji's effect because it'll still be unblockable. And then Pouncing Paws because it can generate a tiger. This is really important for Shuko and Blood Scent because you need to play a tiger to Blood Scent. So you can, if you just want it, it's just a free 2 power attack in a game. Pouncing Paws for the Pouncing Paws, Break Tearing Shuko. You have a 0 for 2 tiger. Then you can pop your Blood Scent, play a Meeps, or swing a Zephyr Needle at some point. It's just good. There are other ways to make tigers, obviously, but it's just a good package that's really nice in Benji. Looking at the rest of the equipment, which the entire sideboard is equipment, the cards you actually want to be playing in Benji really can't get swapped out. There's not too many tech cards, so you generally are playing your main list of 40 every game. So looking at this equipment, we have 3 Arcane Barrier, being Arcane Lantern, Null Ring Gloves, and Tide Flippers. Tide Flippers is the just base one to give something go again. You have some stuff that doesn't have go again, stuff like Stab Wound, as well as Blue Snatch are things that you can Tide Flippers, pretty much just anything in the deck. Mainly it'll be for the AB, but oh well. We do have a fair amount of blues at 12 blues, which means we can play 3 AB. Spell Void's okay, but also Wizard isn't like the most prominent thing. Sometimes you can just kill the Wizard before they kill you. Just having 3 AB is a little safer, as well as you won't need that extra damage because Wizards do start at a lower life total. So No Ring Glove is fine to run, and then if you're swinging both your weapons into a ninja, into a wizard, you're probably in a really bad spot. So Arcane Lantern. Into Rune Blade, I would recommend just Tide Flippers because you can still get use out of them on something like a Snatch, like I said, or maybe like a Stab Wound if you need to, or even a Vipox. The Pouncing Paws Tiger is really nice, but compared to the Tearing Shuko, it's 2 damage versus a Tiger that theoretically comes in for 1 usually. So I'd rather just have the Pouncing Paws or I'd rather have the Tearing Shuko than the Pouncing Paws in that situation. Tiger Stripe Shuko is going to come in versus decks we want the 2 armor for. Any deck as well that might be able to block us a little better, Tearing Shuko will be really nice into, because we can use this to grind out extra damage throughout a game. As well as if we play against something that's going to have Ward like an Enigma, we'll want the Unpreventable from the Tiger Stripe Shuko over the Tearing Shuko. So that's really the reason why it's in the deck. And then 2 Zephyr Needle. The 2 Zephyr Needle are here mainly because into extremely fast aggro decks, Zephyr Needle is going to be just better than Harmonized Kodachi. Versus Zen, versus very similar decks, Zephyr Needle is great. Zephyr Needle is actually Benji's main weapon. He's even holding it in his art. The main reason being is because once you land your first hit with Benji, your second hit can be a Zephyr Needle for 3, and it's very hard to break them. The reason that both of these are actually in the deck is because sometimes you do want that unbreakable dagger. You can easily swap them in for anything else, but there is no other equipment that you actually really care about, and you can't really get any cards that you swap in, so I am opting for playing both the Kodachis and both Zephyr Needles, because there are points to where you actually could possibly want Kodachi over Needle, or Needle over Kodachi. If I'm in a matchup that has an extreme amount of armor, that's going to probably go later than like turn 4, I'd rather have the Harmonized Kodachi because there's a high likelihood that they're going to be able to break my Zephyr Needles, and I'll be out of a weapon for those late game situations where they need to block my Kodachis so I can actually take cards out of their hand. And as Benji, you will be taking cards out of their hand earlier because they can't block your attacks. They need to save their life on something else, so you can use these to maybe threaten your opponent a bit, scare them to actually use cards so they can't threaten you as much going into their turn, which they'll have very little amount of turns left. But that's sort of the reasoning for both of them. But now let's talk about the actual main board of the deck. A lot of cards that you might see in Ninja. None of these cards you will ever see in any other Ninja deck, apart from possibly Double Strike and 100 Wins. Double Strike Red just makes a lot of sense. With the Tiger Stripe Shuko, we can come in with the first Double Strike, then come in with the weapon, and then the second Double Strike, and it works out really well. Even in those situations where we don't, we can always go double strike for 3 total, making it pretty good. Really good with Mask of Momentum because it's 2 attacks. Really good with our Spring Tidings, which we will talk about later. Just one of the better cards, even though it's only a base power of 1. Yellow and blue 100 wins just because they are base attacks with Go Again. They have combos, so they're tutorable with our Wander with Purpose. The yellow ones are really nice because we are on yellow aspect of body, and the blue ones are really nice because they work well with our Tiger Stripe Shuka when we bring that in, as well as they're a blue that we can pitch for daggers or our Mischievous Meeps. Speaking of which, 2 Mischievous Meeps. If you don't know what this card does, this card was not played as much as some of my local players expected. Mischievous Meeps is a 1 cost 2 power 2 block generic. It has Go Again, and the on hit of gain control of an item that hero controls with 2 or less cost. But if you can't take an item, so they don't have one, you just draw a card instead. Which means this is a 1 for 2 unblockable draw card in Benji. That's really, really good. It's good enough to be the only 1 cost card actually in this deck, because they either put equipment in front, which is good for you, because you really want this card to hit, or they don't put equipment in front and you just get another card for free. Vipox is another card that you really never see in any deck ever. Vipox is a 0 for 1 with 3 block that has an on hit to make the hero that it hits lose life equal to the number of cards in their hand. This can be deceptively strong, especially in the decks that don't bring armor, or after you've whittled down their armor. This can just hit someone for 4 and they can't block it, which is really, really good. Since your opponent can't block, there's no way they can get cards out of their hand to play around the Vipox at all. So just Vipox can come in for an extremely high amount of damage, which is just insane in a lot of situations, and especially in late game. If your opponent is at, say, 3 or 4 and they don't have equipment, but they got you to block with a lot of your cards, Vipox is the perfect 1 card hand. Throw it for 1, they can't block it because they don't have equipment, and they die because they still have 4 cards in their hand that they can't put in front of it. So this is just a really good finisher that you can play in this deck. It not having Go Again doesn't really matter. Most of the deck does have Go Again or can gain Go Again. There's really only, I guess we have technically 8 finishers in the deck, this being 2 of them. And that's actually all the reds. There's only 3 reds in this deck because red attacks and ninja generally have 3 power. So let's go over the yellows and I guess blue, because we'll talk about both Biting Breeze when we get to it. Yellow aspect of Tiger Soul is like the least playable aspect of Tiger variant. Blue, I guess, is technically worse, but the red one's really good. You see that in Constructed a lot. The reason why we're on this yellow one is because the deck is mostly yellows, which means we can combo it very easily. It generates a Tiger, which we can use a lot if we can use the Tiger with a Benji or with a Tiger Stripe Shuko, which would be very hard to do because we need to combo it. So generally not the Tiger Stripe Shuko, but off like a Benji, if they like armor block our first attack that was yellow, and then we throw the aspect of Tiger, get the Tiger, play that for 1, which is pretty nice. Just an extra attack for Spring Tidings and for our Tiger synergy since we are on Roar the Tiger. Biting Breeze yellow and blue for a very similar reason. They generate a Tiger on hit. They can't be blocked. Extra attack for your Tidings, extra attack for your Benji trigger, extra attack for your Mask of Momentum. On the red, on the yellow and the blue, because they're both just good. Yellow Growl, there's no blue Growl. If there was, we'd play it. It's just not in the game. Yellow, 2 power. When this attacks, your next Tiger gets +1. We have a lot of Tigers. It just makes Tigers actually live. Yellow Head Jab. This is here because we're on yellow 1-2 punch. It's also just a 0 for 2. I am not playing Be Like Water. The reason we're not playing Be Like Water is because it costs 1 to make it a head jab. That's the only reason. Normal head jab is better than it. Every other attack in this deck has a reason to be in here. So head jab is better than the Be Like Water. We're here to talk to the 100 wins. Just good yellow, good blue Go Again attack. Sometimes you go yellow 100 wins and a blue 100 wins, come in with 2 attacks for 2. Not very common, but it happens. Hurl can end a game. This is another reason why Kodachis can sometimes be better than Zephyr Needles, into matchups that can possibly break your Zephyr Needles, Hurl is pretty bad because you won't have the daggers. Something like into Dromai and Blitz, you bring 1 Needle, 1 Kodachi, because you want the Needle to help deal with some of the bigger dragons. If they put them out early, something like Asvalai or Kyloria die to 1 Needle. Well, I guess Asvalai doesn't die to 1 Needle, but it dies to just your daggers instead of needing an actual attack committed to it. So Hurl is actually a really good card when you do bring in the Kodachis, because if you can keep the Kodachi around, you can actually throw it after your needle gets broken, because also, if they do block and pop your needle, you can also throw the needle. So this is a pretty nice tool to do that. And of course, this costs 1, so Blood Scent, 1 cost generation. Pretty nice, but I generally will pitch a blue and swing with the dagger the turn we actually play the Hurl. 1-2 Punch. This card's only in the deck because I think it's pretty decent. I think it's also pretty funny to land. This is a yellow 0 cost, 2 power, 3 block that if Head Jab was the last attack, it has an on hit for 2 extra damage. So it's kind of like a 0 for 4. This is one of the other finishers we're playing. Generally, you'll end up pitching it or blocking with it since it is 3 block. And 2 pitch is generally pretty good for this deck. But, I mean, if we can actually get it off comboed with the Head Jab, it's very, very deadly. Ride the Tailwind is a good effect. On hit, gives our next attack action of power 2 or less go again. This is great if any of our finishers, aren't really needed to end our turn. Like, we want to keep going. Something like a Snatch is really great with, since giving the Snatch go again lets us continue our turn. 1-2 Punch if we have it without the Head Jab, or we need to keep going, is good. Same as Vipox. We can play it with that. A good lead could be Ride the Tailwind into Vipox, since that would take our Benji trigger coming for 2. They can't block either. And then I guess Stab Wound as well, but hopefully we hit with our daggers prior to actually using Stab Wound. Roar the Tiger, because it pumps all of our tigers, makes us a tiger. It's just real, real good. On any turn we make multiple tigers, Roar the Tiger is a really nice card that we really, really like. Spring Tidings, kind of the best card in the deck, to be honest. This is the reason you're playing Benji. It has an on hit to draw a card for each other attack action card with base power 2 or less on the combat chain. Notably, Crouching Tigers are attack actions. So, your Biting Breezes, your Aspect Souls, even your Pouncing Paws are drawing you an extra card if you can land the Spring Tidings. You want to land the Spring Tidings. This is what people are saving their equipment for. The rest of the Benji deck is designed in a way to make your opponent use their equipment so they don't have it for when you get your Spring Tidings. I had a game where I Spring Tidings and drew 7 cards. That's very, very common. You have a free one in your shoes, you have a free one with all of these tiger generating attacks. Even Roar the Tiger, even though it's not an attack itself, generates you one. Insanely strong. Probably the best card. Not even probably, it just is the best card in the deck. Wander with Purpose is the other Benji spec. Sorta makes me wish we got Benji as an adult form in Outsiders, because I think a card like this is pretty cool. Pretty much you just get a Katsu Search if this hits, which, there isn't really too many things you can get. Pouncing Key can be a 0 for 2. You can get 100 wins. You can get Aspect Soul. That's actually it. So you're really never tutoring with it, but it's just a 0 for 2 go again. That has 3 block, so why not play it? Pouncing Key is a 0 for 1, but if Tigers were the last thing, it gets +1 go again. It's just a blue block 3 0 for 2. That's why it's in the deck. Snatch draws a card, and it also can't be blocked. That's why we're playing Blue Snatch. I don't have to explain Blue Snatch. Soulbeat Strike is a 0 for 2 that has an on hit to gain go again. A lot of the time, this will get blocked with equipment, but that's fine. If you end it with like one other card in hand, they'll have the decision of going, okay, should I block this and stop them from going and let them keep an arsenal, or should I not block this, let you have go again, and then let you throw the next attack And then if they don't block, sometimes you just say move the arsenal. Other times you throw, stab wound, another thing they have to block, or snatch, another thing they have to block. And it's just good for you. So Soul Strike is just one of the better cards we could be playing that have go again. Makes them block equipment. Yes, it can end your turn sometimes when they do block it, but you can just learn to play around that, hopefully, or just start pitching it to daggers if you're in a matchup that can easily block it and you don't want it to end your turn. And then finally, Stab Wound. We have a lot of daggers. Zephyr Needle and Kodachis are both daggers. If you land both, this is a 0 for 4. If you hurl one, the dagger's considered to hit, so you can hurl a dagger and then the Stab Wound proc will see that dagger actually hitting. So that's pretty cool. At least I assume. It says this combat chain. Technically the hurl dagger has hit, but it's not on the combat chain. But the way it's worded, I would think it does. But you're also probably never playing Stab Wound. It's really in the deck because it's an extra on hit. So sorry if that was misinformation, but that's what I assume it'd do. But that doesn't matter. It's just a finisher that comes in for some damage sometimes. You want to play for Spring Tidings. That's how you play Benji. Overall, it's a pretty basic deck. Probably what I'm going to play, either this or Zen. I'm going to play it Skirmish. So, yeah, I hope you guys, a pretty fast one, I guess. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Next week, we'll look at Sutton. I don't know. But good luck at your skirmishes. I guess Skirmish is in 1 week after this goes up. So good luck at your skirmishes. And maybe we'll look at an LL deck, because I think there's LL skirmishes this season. So maybe. But anyway, that's going to be it for the video. See you guys in the next one. Goodbye.